We're back. Casey Anthony, found not guilty of murder earlier this week, was sentenced today to 4 years and fined $4,000 for lying to investigators in this search for her daughter, Kaylee. But with credit for the already time served, she'll be out of jail next Wednesday. That's July 13th. She'll be free. For more on the case, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Terry Sanders, who's covered this story actually from the beginning, and former prosecutor Susan Filan. Carrie, you've had an amazing story. I don't know if you can write a book about this, but you must be so flabbergasted by everything that's happened. And I guess, Carrie, let me ask you about this case here. You're smiling, but I don't know. What do you make of it at this point? She's off out next Wednesday.
It's a remarkable story. The journey is a book, and you're right, I have written a book. That's why I was smiling, and I'll hopefully have it available as early as next week. I'm just waiting for the final chapter to be written. And you know, that Wednesday date, it's a moving target. Even though they've done these calculations, it's not set in stone. She may leave earlier. And I think that they're doing a lot of that simply because it's possible that her departure from the jail could become a spectacle, and they're concerned about even her safety. Just having her leave the jail and return to the jail today was very difficult. The jail guards and the officials there, corrections officials, brought in their SRU, which is like a SWAT team, and they were treating this with a lot of really high extreme security, because the concern is that there is so much anger in this community that somebody will act out, because so many people believed, you know, in this community here in the Orlando area, they've lived with this for 3 years. This hasn't been a month-plus long trial. This has been almost every day in their community, on local television, in the newspaper, on the webs, and a lot of people talking about it almost daily, you know, over breakfast at the table. And so everybody thought they knew what was going to happen. And when the jury came back and acquitted her on the main charges here, the felony charges, the murder charges, there was just, as we have all seen, those jaws that dropped, Chris, because people thought they knew something different.
Well, here last night, juror number 3, Jennifer Ford, spoke out on ABC News and questioned what she called a lack of evidence in the case. Let's listen to that.
It doesn't feel good. It was a horrible decision to have to make, but I had to do it based on the law. There wasn't enough evidence. There wasn't anything strong enough to say exactly. I don't think anyone in America could tell us exactly how she died. If you put even just the 12 jurors in one room with a piece of paper, write down how Kaylee died, nobody knows. We'd all be guessing. We have no idea.
So what do we say about justice in America, Susan, when the jurors say the prosecutors didn't make their case, they didn't see the connection between the person they may think is a killer, but they can't see the evidence of them killing, and yet nobody's ever going to be punished for this? What does it say about our system if no one's ever going to be punished for the killing of this baby? It's just going to be something that happened.
What it says is that the rule of law lives in this country. We don't have vigilante justice. We don't have mob justice. And while it's not the verdict that I would have reached, I was shocked and stunned by it, and I disagree with it. I respect it. I respect that jury that was in that courtroom every day and decided this case on the evidence presented before it, not on emotion and not on television. And that's what you and I would want if, God forbid, it were we in that defendant's spot.
Well, what are they thinking happened if it wasn't the murder by her of her daughter? What other possible reality occurred here that explained her not reporting this for 30 days and all the other circumstantial evidence? What other conclusion could they have drawn about reality here 3 years ago? What
they said is we don't know. We think, but we'd be speculating. And the medical examiner made a homicide determination based on an inference because of the way the remains were found. Casey Anthony got the benefit of this being a decomp case with just skeletal remains. But when you have an inference of homicide and then a circumstantial case built on that, this jury was not comfortable that that was a sufficiency of the evidence, that the state had met its burden of proof. And I have to respect them for that. And again, it's not the verdict that I would have reached. I didn't have any trouble connecting the dots, and I could stand back and look at the big picture and say the same thing that you said, Chris. What other reasonable, logical conclusion could you draw? But that's not how this jury saw it. And you've got to respect that they didn't decide this just on either hating her or calling her a liar. They looked at this problem in the case that's there no matter how you slice it. Nobody really knows for sure how Casey died. And if you don't know that, you can't be sure it was homicide. If it wasn't homicide, it might have been accident. And that's how they came down on it.
Okay, let's go to the reporting here. Carrie, as you look ahead, what's going to happen to her? They're going to sneak her off to somewhere else. How are they going to avoid more calamity here?
Well, I think they're going to have to sneak her out, and there's really no choice because of the anger in the community. And it's unclear, but she likely will be able to go anywhere she wants in the United States. Puerto Rico, you don't need a passport to go to Puerto Rico. Of course, remember, this is a woman who was really no income at all, then was arrested, and through this process hired private attorneys. Initially, part of their funds were funded by ABC News that paid him $200,000. That money dried up. She was declared indigent, which normally somebody in Florida who's indigent would get a public defender, but attorney Jose Baez and later Cheney Mason were so deep into this case, it didn't make sense to change, horses in midstream here. And so what they wound up doing was they decided that the judge would approve all of the expenses associated with it. She would maintain with these attorneys. And now Jose Baez is, I think, going to be with Casey Anthony in some sort of perhaps financial relationship going forward. We're trying to follow up on a story today that we haven't confirmed yet, but that the two of them have signed with an agent because there may be some value. But, she has no money. She has $300 some odd in a commissary account in jail, and that's it, Chris.
Carrie, we're going to read your book. Come on Hardball to talk about it. Carrie Sanders, who's got the book of the century coming up here, and Susan Filan, who believes in the law. When we return, let me finish with the critical situation the country's in right now in terms of our finances and why we need leaders to take action. You're watching Hardball, only on MSNBC.